This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It is brought to you every week at this time on this station by Independent Bank. Katie Huckle is my co-host, and boy, we're coming up on our 5th anniversary show, you know. Just 2.5 months away.
I can't believe it.
We started this on the first Saturday in January of 2020 with Chef Herman as our first guest, and we're coming up on 5 years.
Incredible. And we have another mover and shaker.
We do.
In the studio with us this morning. She is the first female mayor in the city of Cadillac. She's been running the city for some time, and Mayor Carla Filkins, and she has stepped up, Rich, as the interim executive director of OASIS.
So she's wearing another hat right now.
A very big hat. Mm-hmm. Yes. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you.
I brought in a dozen roses for our guest. I've never done this before, but they're all different colors, and this was so fitting, I think, for Carla because of the many hats that she wears in our community. Mm-hmm. And color is so important to OASIS in the month of October. The color purple, the color red, and we'll get into some of that stuff. But Carla, these are for you, and just a thank you from Rich and I in the community for all of the leadership hats that you wear, and also your impeccable timing. I told her when we had lunch to discuss this new turn of events, as your friend, you just retired and now you're going to step up and do this. So as your friend, I'm like, oh no, let her retire. But as an 11-year board member of OASIS, retired board member, I'm really happy. I'm relieved. So thank you.
I will also say, Carla, that your husband is never home anyway. He's the second most busy retired person in Cadillac. So why not, right?
Why not? Right. And interesting that you mentioned Mike and how busy he is, because before I stepped into this role, Mike was serving on the board for OASIS. And so which he really, really appreciates it. And he's very honored to do it. But because I stepped into this role, he had to step down from the board. But he is still volunteering. He's still walking beside me, and he's still walking beside OASIS. So.
Awesome. So quick snapshot in your career, because I think people would be amazed by your resume. Can you tell us a little bit? And again, when I say I'm so relieved and happy as a retired board member of OASIS, it is because Carla can back it up. She has a history of being a strong leader and building positive momentum and strong foundations. But can you tell us a little bit about your resume?
Well, I retired a year ago on June 30th from Munson Healthcare. I was in the supply chain for 43 years for Mercy and for Munson. And when I retired, I was serving as the regional director of supply chain in the South region. So I had been doing that. Supply chain is what I knew. And I have a master's degree in marketing, a bachelor's degree in business leadership. And, 13 years ago, I stepped into the public eye when I decided to run for mayor of the city of Cadillac, which is one of the best decisions I think that I've ever made. And, 13 years ago, I wasn't elected. I lost by a few votes. But then 2 years later, I had the opportunity to run again, and so I did. And now I'm in my 11th year as the mayor of Cadillac.
What a journey it's been. I know somewhere because I introduced her. She won the Celebrate Women Award this year. So I got to introduce Carla at that luncheon in June, which was really a privilege. And when I was reading off her kind of long list of accolades and things that she's done, there's a black belt or something in there. What was that for?
A Six Sigma black belt. It's continuous improvement. And so, whether you're in manufacturing or whether you're in healthcare, it's taking a look at processes, and you either look at it from, a mile wide and an inch deep, or an inch wide and a mile deep. So black belt certification is one of the highest ratings that you can get in process improvement. And so I got that when I was working in healthcare.
And here we are speaking about processes and improvements. When did you take over as executive director?
I took over a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And so in that time, I've just been immersing myself in all things OASIS and learning a lot.
If you were going to give an elevator speech to somebody who wasn't from Cadillac about what the agency does, and again, an elevator speech because there's no way to cover everything, right? Can you give us a snapshot? What would you say OASIS does?
OASIS works with domestic violence and sexual abuse victims to walk beside them in the darkest times of their lives. We provide emergency shelter. We provide transitional housing. We provide counseling. We don't turn anyone away. We walk beside them. We don't tell them what to do. We listen to what they need and what they want. And we walk beside them and teach them how to get the resources that are needed. You know, whether it's housing, whether it's financing, whether it's social interaction, whether it's, something to do with children. We walk by them on the journey that they're on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think October is Domestic Violence Month.
It is.
And so let's talk about what's on the agenda in the community so that you can create awareness.
Yes. Today, the purple lights went up all over the city of Cadillac downtown. The city staff was busy putting it up, and different store owners and even homeowners have been putting purple lights in their windows. And so next Thursday, we are holding a vigil in the marketplace at Cadillac Commons. And it's going to be a vigil to remember those that have been affected by either of, the domestic violence or the sexual assault, and remember what they've gone through and remembering those who actually have given their life. And so we want to remember why it is so important to provide the services that we do in this community.
Okay. There are red cutouts, and it was so funny. I was at lunch with a couple of dear friends, and they were like, what are those little red statues all over town? So can you tell our listeners what that's about?
Yes. They are called the Red Ladies, and they each have a story. They have a story about someone who did lose their life in the worst time of their life due to, assault. And so we have those around town to educate people, when people stop and they do catch your eye, right?
Sure.
So we have those around so people will stop, pause, and take a moment to understand what's being recognized. We will have the ladies down at the market next Thursday, and our advocates will be there, and they will be telling some stories. And, confidentiality is so important, but we can still tell stories.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And so, just in the last couple of weeks working with staff and thinking about this month and raising awareness in the community, they are all so passionate about the work that they do, and they are so good at it.
They really are. And let's talk for a minute, just because you wear two hats in this category, about the relationship that the agency has with local law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, we have had members of local law enforcement serving on the board in years past. Each year when we do this vigil, they walk beside us. They're there at the vigil with us, as is the prosecutor and other people from the court system. And we really rely on them as advocates for these people. Sometimes they aren't accessible to us because of the situations that they find themselves in. And so, law enforcement is there to protect. And so we rely on them, our partners, to do everything that we can to reach a good outcome.
Right. Fundraising needs to kick in, and let's talk about that. OASIS, it takes a lot of money to run the agency, and I know that federal and state grants are an important part of the budget, but can we talk about what the community can do to support OASIS and what the community needs to do to step up right now?
Right. Yes, our programming is funded by state and federal grants. And those dollars that we receive, I mean, we have amazing grant programs in place. But the grant dollars that are provided to us are for programming for our clients. And so there's certain expenses that we have every day that we can't use those grant dollars for. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about food. I'm talking about any clothing needs that the clients have if we're putting them into housing, providing furniture and things they may need to set up household. I'm talking about, we own the OASIS building in downtown Cadillac. We're very proud of that. And that's because of the work of past strong board members. So we have that asset sitting in downtown Cadillac. We also own our shelter, which houses up to 6 women and their children. And that could be either a mom that doesn't have any children, or it could be a mom that most recently has 6 children, right? And so, during the school year, as you can imagine, if we have all of these children, all of these families in shelter, when school is not in session, of course, expenses go up to be able to, manage their household.
Sure.
But, what can people do to help us? The needs that we have are not one-time expenses. It's like I don't go to the grocery store today and buy my groceries for the whole year, right? I can't
I've
do
been
that.
to your house. You buy I know Mike's at the grocery store a lot. He's a gourmet chef, you see. Yeah.
So, these are ongoing expenses. It's not something, so I gave $100 to OASIS last month and, I did a really good thing and I move on. But there are constantly new people moving through our program. And so, what are those needs? We don't always know what those needs are.
Right.
But we'll utilize the grant funding when we can. But for, having to put in a new furnace in our building, that is not a sexy project, right? Why would I want to pay for that for, OASIS downtown? But we can't run our advocacy program and the things that we do without a safe, maintained building.
Right.
So that's what we use the general fund for. And so part of the work that I intend to do in my time there is that I want to educate the community how they can pull up alongside of us and help us. One thing that I did learn just recently, I've learned a lot, but one of the things that I learned recently was during COVID. We have different 5-year grant cycle or a 3-year grant cycle. And so the grants are written and they're in place for us. But during COVID, one of the things that changed was that the need to have matching dollars for these grants that we were receiving or are receiving, that was taken away. But we're almost to the end of that 5-year grant cycle where when we apply this next time, we're going to have matching funds to obtain those dollars from the federal government and from the state government. Now, we can get those dollars in different ways. We can get those dollars by Katie coming and volunteering, and we put $30 on that hour of volunteering or that 40 hours of volunteering. Those are matching dollars that we can put towards those grants. Okay. So there's a lot of wheels turning, I'm learning. So I'm going to be front facing. I'm going to be out in the community talking with people, educating people, learning, and just encouraging people to get involved.
Right.
I even, our building downtown, I thought there's got to be somebody out there that maybe is retired that might want to come in and maybe just do some housekeeping. Those are all hours that we can put down for matching grant funding.
So important for our listeners that haven't heard of matching grant funding. Sort of the premise would be the state and the federal government are looking to see, is this agency so relevant and critical to the community that the community will reach into their own pockets and pull out money to help fund?
Yes.
And if they can see that support, then they'll step up with matching funds.
Yes.
And I think that's good for people to know that, nothing has been mismanaged here. It's just the timing of everything. And Carla and I have had some one-on-one meetings where the timing of everything is now critical, and fundraising efforts need to start happening immediately. And I know you're on it. Can you tell us about what that looks like?
Right. Well, one thing that I would share too, Katie, is this very conversation that you and I had. Every year in the month of September and October, the federal and state grants are held back. The payment of those are held back because they're in their year-end process, closing their books. And so what happens is we don't get a payment in the month of October. And, then we get the double payment in the month of November. But what we have to have is we have to have a general budget, dollars in our budget. So when that happens, even though the employees are being paid by the grant, we have to be able to cover that 2-month period of time where those funds are kind of lagging behind. Right. And so my goal and my ask of the community is to help us grow that general fund so that we have, a certain amount of dollars in our budget that we never touch, that we know is going to be there every fall, because it's going to happen every fall. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that next fall it doesn't happen. I mean, It's going to happen, but we're going to be prepared for it.
Right. Reserves.
Yes.
Rich, can you imagine how many months is it? 1 or 2?
Well, it kind of falls over the month of September, October.
Okay.
But yeah. So just to explain the funding at OASIS, there are 3 staff members. None of the staff members are paid by the general fund except the executive director, and then our operations manager, and Ashley, who is our quality control person, making sure we're dotting all of our I's, crossing all of our T's, and she does the audit before the audit, if you will.
Okay.
So part of their payroll comes out of general budget, but everyone else is covered by the grant dollars. And so when those are held up for a month, we still need to pay those employees.
Oh my goodness, yes, because they are the lifeblood of they're the heartbeat.
Yes.
But Rich, imagine you're going to go a month with no paycheck. I mean, with that kid.
You have to budget, right?
Exactly.
If you see this period of time coming and you know that there's not going to be anything coming in, and it's the hardest thing to do.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Is to set money aside. So,
right. And so I think that's so well explained. Thank you for that, because we know that there's been a couple of years now when this hits, it's like, everybody's scrambling,
Yes.
And so I know you're looking for a certain amount of money. I won't pin you down on it, but what are you looking to fundraise, and timeline, and how much and how?
Wow, that's a really good question.
Okay.
And I've had, and I want to speak honestly about it. I have had a lot of conversations, and I know the dollar amount that we always need to have in our general budget is $50,000 that we don't touch. We don't touch it.
Okay.
Because that's what's needed to get over this hump in the fall when those grant dollars are lagging. But we also have to have enough in the budget to pay the plumber when the kids at the shelter put soap or Legos down the toilet, right? So there, I mean, I just saw that happen. So that's a real example.
Right.
But, we need to be able to take care of the shelter. We also have other transitional housing that we move people into. So we're responsible for the maintenance on those homes as well. Mm-hmm. And so, those aren't like, oh gosh, this is really a great project, but we have to take care of the resources that have been entrusted to us and make the homes safe and make them, a safe haven and comfortable.
Right. When you talk about transitional housing, I'm not sure that most people in the community know about and so our transitional housing. And so what happens is you've got a family in shelter and they're receiving counseling and help with employment, help with interview skills, those life skills.
Yes.
And then if they don't have a place to go to, OASIS also has other homes that they can have X amount of time at as they get on their feet and build their life skills. And so it really is helping someone start over.
It really is.
And rebuilding their life.
It really is, because we actually have clients who, they've gotten married very, very young. They've had a family and they've never had a bank account. They've never, they never go to the store because they're not controlling any of the money in the household. So they don't even know how to do that.
Right.
And so we want to help them with that. And that's where that advocacy program is just so wonderful. And when we talk about, the transitional housing, we actually eventually get these clients into permanent housing. Renee Fulis is our housing advocate, and she does an amazing job. And she has wonderful working relationships with local landlords who work with us and get people into permanent housing. And that's what it is all about.
It is, because that brings stability to that woman and her children. Renee is a champion for OASIS and for our local communities. I mean, we're talking about 3 counties, I think, plus that she covers. And the work that she does and has done for so long is mind-blowing to me.
Yes.
And she's the kind of gal that she could call a guy that owns a truck and say, we're going to need you to come over here with your truck because this lady's moving today. And people do it for her,
right?
Because they understand it isn't about her.
It's about the mission. It's happening today. It was, the 6 children. It's happening today, and that's so exciting. But you're right. That is exactly what they do. They call up their people,
right?
And when I was talking about volunteers earlier, I want to get groups. I want to reach into the school system and talk to the football coach and say, hey, if we have a heavy lift, can you get together 10 or 12 guys that can come in and get it done in a really short amount of time?
Would you tell her no?
I wouldn't tell her no. Hey, have that replace a weightlifting class.
There you go. There you go.
I don't think anyone tells Carla no, and that's why, again, when she agreed to step into this position, I was just shaking my head, but I thought, but who else? Because she's going to get return phone calls. The community has a need. Are you going to tell her no? She's researched the need. In one of our most recent meetings, she was like, well, what we need is ding, 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 ding. And I thought, and this is where the master's degree comes in. And this is where the supply chain background comes in, like anticipating the needs that the agency is going to have. I'm just curious about what happened in the living room that night when, Mike's on the phone handling stuff for OASIS all the time and Carla's in the background, because they do operate as a team, even though they have very different roles, the mayor and the maestro. I want to know how the conversation went to, oh boy, T.I. and I are going to, go slay this dragon, to Mike, I'm going to take over as interim director. Can you share that with us?
Well, let me try to remember exactly how that all happened. Actually, T.I. Shippers, yes. She is actually the board chair right now.
Oh, okay.
And she's kind of like I am in that she wears many different hats. But we were at a Michigan Municipal League conference on Mackinac Island, and this was just weighing so heavily on her heart, on the board's heart, because the executive director had to step away because of family needs, And so they're looking at having to replace the executive director, but the executive director is like leaving now. And we're also in the fall,
Right.
this financial thing that we're going through. And so, TI was talking and she's just like, we have to find somebody that can step in and, and just lead in this. So TI and I had a conversation and I'm like, I'll do whatever you need me to do. And so she was just, I could see her just be relieved. And not because it was me, but because somebody said, let me help you.
Yes.
And so, do I have a background in domestic violence and, working in this arena? I absolutely do not. But I have been working in leadership for a long time. And so this isn't about me. It's simply about getting the right people on the bus and helping the staff at OASIS know that they are supported, they are appreciated. And when they know that, and they know that somebody is there every day to check on them, they're going to do the best work that they can do.
100%. It is absolutely incredible. You cannot even quantify how important it is to feel important and appreciated at work for what you do. And you need to have a manager sometimes that comes in and says, I see you. I see what you're doing, and I appreciate that. Not all businesses have that, so that's very important.
It is, and I'd also like to say, having a marketing background and that kind of stuff, OASIS is very busy doing the work, the heavy lifting of helping women in crisis. And so, tying a bow around it, and is there a lot of money for advertising? Is there a lot of money for promotion? No, they're buying diapers. That kind, like you said,
basic needs.
Yeah, Legos in the toilet. We need plumbing because we have 6 moms and their kids in the shelter, and
can't have an overflowing toilet for very long.
You can't. And so, people might say, what do they do? Or how come I haven't seen them recently in the community? The agency is vibrant and thriving in terms of what it does in helping families in our community. But it's one of those, most people understand what OASIS does. Now it's time for the community to put our money where our mouth is and write checks and support, or like you said, volunteer, whatever it may be. If you want to make baby quilts, if you want to, like you said, help with housekeeping, if you want to help with bookkeeping, if you want to help with lawn care at the shelter, we need you, Yes. And I think, Carla, not that there's, like we said, everybody's been all hands on deck, everybody's been doing a good job, but maybe one thing that could be done better is telling the story. And I think with you at the helm, already in the spotlight with your day job, let's say, of course she's retired, but her day job, I think you're the right person to tell the story because you've got the contacts and already the respect.
I really appreciate everything that you said here today. And I've appreciated being able to tell that story to you, as my friend, as a past board member. And it's critical that we get out into the community and reach the people who have the ability for me to have the ability to give and for me to tell the story. And moving forward, I want to be as transparent as possible. If Rich wants to stop down to OASIS because he really wants to understand, okay, show me. Carla, if you don't think that there's any misappropriation of anything, explain to me how the finances work in this organization. Then we're going to have a great conversation.
And you know what? Here's a question I want to ask you right now, Carla. So say somebody out in the community writes OASIS Family Resource Center a $5,000 check. what is the biggest need? Where would that money go first?
Well, I would say, based on the things that I've learned recently, is first of all, we would probably want to identify where they would like those funds to be used. You know, when donors give, I want them to know their dollars are being used for exactly what they want them to be used for.
So if the donor comes to you and says, use it for what you need most, where does it go?
It's going to go into the general fund, and
Okay.
it's going to help us. I mean, Rich and Katie, there's always overflow, right? We only have so much room in the shelter. So we have donors who provide us financial support so we can put people in hotels until they can get into the shelter. So that's another thing we do. We work with some of the local hotels, and we are able to get them into a safe place immediately. Mm-hmm. And so donor funds help with that. It's really removing them, the clients, the survivors, from a really bad situation and immediately getting them to a place where they can just breathe.
Yes, feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you, Rich, the advocates that work at the shelter are angels that walk among us, because you want to talk about someone showing up on your doorstep, and they are ready. They're ready for any situation. You know, a woman and all of her kids, and nobody's got any clothes, and nobody's got any toiletries. They're ready. And so, again, I think that shout out to all of these people, these incredible, you know, big hearts that work for the agency. They're champions in the community because they're working for a population that doesn't have a voice.
Right.
But they're out there.
Can I also, I don't want to miss the opportunity to say that not all of our clients are women.
Right?
We have men, right? So again, you know, like the hotel, the expense of putting them in a hotel. Obviously, we can't put men in the shelter, so they would always go into a hotel. But we are here for men too, and our advocates and our counselors work with everyone.
Right.
And no one is turned away because they don't have the money.
Right. So one of our very first executive director was Cheryl Bader of OASIS, and U of M grad, brilliant woman. And there had to be, I don't know if people actually had to sign this, employees, counselors, therapists coming on board when the organization was first structured. But the passion for these people and their crisis situation was at such a place that the advocates and counselors wanted to take them and their children into their own homes. You know, like, we're not going to leave this person in this situation. We don't have a place to put them. Come on home with me. You know, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. But these people, you have to separate it. But that's how passionate they are. Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm going to help, but I'm going to need a minute. And how are we going to stabilize and keep these people safe? And I smiled when I learned that, because I thought I could see that happening when someone really needs help. You're going to do everything that you can to help that person. And in our case, in this interview, this critical foundation nonprofit agency did need leadership, and they did need help. And thank you, Carla, for stepping up.
You're welcome.
Carla, I know you've got a major fundraiser coming up, and I know there are some letters going out. Can you tell us, number one, what it's about, and number two, how much money you want to raise with that fundraiser?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of things going on, and one thing that I did differently this year was that we have the vigil coming up on the 17th. And so I sent personal invitations out to many people that I know, and I invited them personally to come and join us. I suggested a dollar amount. I don't know in the past if they asked people to bring a check when they came to that event, but I thought it was a good time to reconnect and, you know, just be upfront and say, we want you here, we want to reconnect, we want to tell our story, and we want to have some fellowship and conversation and refreshments to talk about that need. And then after that, we are working on our annual appeal letter, and that will go out to anyone who is a property owner in Wexford and Missaukee County. And it is asking for a gift of money, a one-time gift, or a recurring gift. But my goal, and the last time I told you this, Katie, when I had a goal, you went, wow. But my goal is that I would like to raise $100,000
Oh boy.
to get us in a solid place with that general budget so that the staff doesn't have to worry or be concerned, and they can focus on the work with our clients that they need to be focused on. And so it's a huge ask to the community. And I know that there are people out there that I can tell this story to that will give. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys to be able to tell our story today. And so whether it's $5 or it's $5,000, it's all going to be so appreciated.
If anybody can do it. We got to retape that one too. If anybody can do it, you can do it.
Let's wrap it up with how folks can interact and hopefully donate
Okay.
to OASIS Family Resource Center. Easiest way.
Easiest way. Well, we are going to make it easy in that we are going to have flyers out. We are going to send out our appeal letter. There will be a QR code on there that you can donate. There will be an email address where you can donate. We will send a sealed envelope, a return on envelope. So you can do it that way, or you can just drop down and whatever you are comfortable with, they are comfortable with, we're happy to accept it.
Carla Filkins wearing the hat of the Executive Director of OASIS Family Resource Center. Thanks for joining us on Cadillac Unscripted.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm telling you, the boss lady, don't tell her no. Support her. We can't afford to not get this right. So thank you, Carla.
See you next weekend. And we already know who our guest is next week. Caitlin Nickel, who is the new owner of the Sweet Shop in downtown Cadillac.
The caramel apples are flying out of there. I'm telling you, I walked by the other day. She is one busy gal.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, ladies. More coming up next week. Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank on 107.9 CDY.